Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to serve as discussion regarding Rixson thresholds when they're used in the only time Rixson and threshold, those two words I think go together, or when you're using them in conjunction with floor closers. Recently, the question has been posed, why would I spend so much money on a Rixson manufactured threshold when I can buy a regular threshold for a lot less money? And that's a very good question, and I believe that it has an equally, if not better, answer. So this video will serve as an informational amount of material for you to digest, consider, and then to make the appropriate decision. So first I'm going to talk about the different Rixson thresholds, their applications, more of a summary view of the line as Rixson offers it in a more comprehensive sort of view. So the first of all, Rixson thresholds are intended to provide not only the concealment of floor closers and even pivot sets, but they're used to properly weather seal a door at the bottom. The sword and shield that I would use to answer the question, why would I spend so much money, would be ordering the thresholds with the floor closer or your pivot hardware. Is this: you are guaranteed that all the valve holes will be in the correct locations. You are guaranteed that the quality of the machining to the material will be done in a manner such that will provide a factory quality end result. You'll be guaranteed that you will not have any unintentional damage to the hardware as a result of buying a threshold and then doing all of the modifications to it that are necessary. In the case of floor closers, which this argument pertains mostly to, when you think about the fact that you will need to have, on a long-term basis, access to the top of the closer body, and then you think about the fact that when you buy a Rixson threshold in conjunction with your floor closers, that you will get a package that allows that in pieces so that you can install all of it and have it look perfect when it's done, is argument alone to not go the route of just ordering a regular threshold, then having to make all of the modifications by hand to suit the need to get access to the valves, to be able to remove part of the threshold only, so that you can service the body itself, in a way that you would have to. And you just can't do that when buying a regular threshold and making those modifications. So you're guaranteed that all the valve holes will be in the correct locations, and therefore the threshold will have separate sections to allow access to the door closer, and that's the bottom line. Now, another reason why it makes sense is that you're going to get a 2-year warranty against defect. There's no warranty on finish for plated items, like a satin chrome plated. The finish itself isn't warranted, but the material itself and the workmanship of that is something that you're making a long-term investment in. And quite frankly, the purchase of floor closers is inherently a long-term investment. I have recently been involved in replacements of floor closer bodies and thresholds that we were able to convince the end user and the architect and the contractor of all of the reasons to buy all of it together, but only after there had been a 40-year installation. So the amount of money spent up front for the expensive hardware is well paid off in due time, and that's just the bottom line logic with it. So whenever floor closers are used with thresholds, the thresholds must be furnished by the closer manufacturer. And the reasoning there is that when you have your closers or your pivots and your thresholds on one PO, it's the factory's obligation and responsibility to make sure everything matches, to ensure that the valve locations, the preparations for the valve locations are correct, and the responsibility is theirs. It relegates the installer to just doing a regular threshold installation at that point because everything's already drilled, correct, ready to go, sort of application. Now, Rixson has basically two different types of thresholds, okay, two major branch categories. And the terminology gets only slightly esoteric at this point. You've got type 1 and type 4. So just think of type 1 and type 4. Those are specifically for center hung applications. Those are going to be used with the Rixson 28, the H28, the 30, the 40, the H40, and the 50 series floor closers. In addition to that, you're going to use it with the F327 and the F53 independently hung floor closers, and then your pivots, your 117 and 3/4 and your H117 and 3/4. And those pivots are important to note because I regularly sell those to people that are hanging very large exterior doors in residential applications. Exterior have to be weather sealed, regardless if it's in sunny Southern California or if it's in upstate New York. You have to weather seal the exterior, or if it's in Arizona for that matter. They may not have a problem with snow, but as a client called and complained last week that he needed a better sweep, they have a problem with scorpions. So properly weather sealing the bottom is part and parcel of the job that the threshold does. So you've got type 1 and type 4 for center hung. Then you've got type 3 and type 5, and those are for your offset hung. You're going to use them with your 20, your 27, and your 51 series closers, and then your 117.5 and your L117 pivot sets, and those are offset pivot sets. Furthermore, Rixson thresholds are available in a variety of widths. Okay, 4-inch, 5-inch, 7-inch, and 8-inch. So you can work with your installation, your opening configuration based on the jam depth, based on the sill conditions, based on what is most appropriate in terms of width. You might have a very narrow frame and a 4 or 5-inch would work. You might have a 8 3/4 frame or a 6 3/4 jam depth frame, and you need an 8-inch for whatever reason. It just works that way. You also have the need to consider the height. That 4-inch is going to be available in a 1/4-inch rise. Then you're going to have 1/2-inch rise on your 5, your 7, and your 8-inch material. Now, extra wide thresholds are available on request. The factory can manufacture wider than 8-inch. They will fabricate that out of constituent components, and then they will apply underneath a bar support for that sort of applications with all types except type 5. And that is, the bar support is considered standard. There are other options that you can also throw at a typical installation of floor closers, such as return miters, and you can see there's a link below this video to a catalog brochure that will show what the return miters look like. And you know, return miters make a lot of sense for a lot of applications. Just depends on yours. Might be a point of personal preference, or it might be matching existing, or it might be what you want, or it might be not what you want. So your return miters are furnished on the pull side of the door. The return miter at the spindle side of the doorway is detachable for easy removal of the closer plate section. And that is the plate that you would need to remove should you need to get access to the top of the closer. 4 corner miters to enhance the finished appearance are available upon request, meaning that inside and outside. But typically the pull side only is what you would do. 1 1/8 mitered end is standard. You can also have a straight end sort of application, and that's pretty self-explanatory. When the threshold abuts a wall at the ends, meaning that you have let's say a 12-inch deep wall thickness, and then you've got a 5 3/4 frame. Okay, so you very likely will want that closer, that floor closer threshold, the threshold is what I'm trying to say, not only cover the inside of the frame and straddle the area in which the door sits, but you might want it to run alongside the face of the frame on both sides and butt to the wall, and that would be a straight end installation. When a threshold abuts at the end of the walls, straight ends up to 2-inch can be substituted for mitered returns at no additional cost. So a mitered return installation is one that you don't have an application where where the frame is a smaller jam depth than the wall depth or the wall thickness. And that link to the product brochure can make a lot of that very self-explanatory. Either instance provides a very clear, professional, clean-looking final appearance is the bottom line. There are other options in terms of these as well. You might have an unusual floor condition. You can do bevel cut thresholds. You can have thresholds that will be ripped straight to achieve a flush floor condition. You might have something happening on the inside of the door, inside of the room. You might have an offset sort of floor condition that would require a rip down to a threshold to make it an offset or a half saddle type threshold. Those applications can also be accommodated, and feel free to reach out to us for that. Standard with thresholds can be ripped straight to achieve a flush floor condition. The threshold bevel on the interior side of the door is removed. So you would take a saddle threshold and they would rip it down one end so that you had the butt end to butt up against your interior floor condition, is what they're saying. Which obviously would be in a condition where you would need to permit threshold and carpet or tile to meet at the same height. A 5/16 bar support is going to be provided, or some sort of compensation at the job site underneath the threshold for that, like built-up concrete or some sort of support. Would be, you can either get the support from the factory or do it in the field, is what I'm trying to say. Scribing. Cutting, or maybe notching, or coping, I suppose. Cutting the threshold to fit the doorstop is done at the job. Rixson will do scribing only if accurate dimensions are supplied. Cost is extra. I'm a big fan of having the factory do that notch or do that scribe or do that coping because they've just got the right tools to do it, is the bottom line. Getting out there with, you're spending all this money for thresholds and floor closers, getting out there with an air grinder, to me doesn't seem to be the best way to go with that. Now, going further down the line of options, you can see from the product brochure that we're going to get into stop strips, where you can add a stop strip to your threshold installation, and very well likely is going to be a great addition to your installation. Having a stop strip can act as a latch track sort of idea, where if you have a pair of doors, surface vertical rod exit devices, and you need to attach a strike on the threshold for your bottom latch of your exit devices, that stop strip is going to take that job and do it, so that you don't have to have that there. Plus, you'll get a positive surface for the door to butt up against, providing a real good weather seal. Variations on that you can see from the link in the product brochure, so I won't beleaguer all those points here. You can also, applications where it doesn't apply as much, Rixson will happily provide thresholds for installations where you have overhead closers. That's referred to. One option that I would always order at the time of the threshold are the anchors. Thresholds are drilled for the installation. They're drilled and countersunk. They are finished with wood screws as standard. You're going to get a package of wood screws. Wood screws. Maybe sheet metal screws. Flathead sheet metal screws. I suggest that you order machine screws and expansion shields if they're required. Here's why. You're guaranteed they're going to fit. You know that they're the right diameter and length. It'll save you a trip to get them. If you have a concrete floor, you know you're going to need them. I have seen people put thresholds in with plastic anchors. I mean, it's not appropriate. It comes out over time. If it is an installation where anything is rolled over it, think funeral home. You need to have, it'll be most likely a concrete grade that you're attaching the threshold to. You need to have proper expansion shields for that. Long-term success of the opening, in my opinion, is dependent on that. Adjusting valve fillers. One thing that I have seen over time, because I've serviced in the field floor closers that have been installed for 30 years and replaced them. And every time I would get to the closer body, I would remark how filthy it is in there over years of that stuff. Years of installation. Hot, cold, seasonal changes, dust, debris. Rixson has available adjusting valve fillers used to keep debris from filling adjusting holes. Buy the fillers right away. Throw them out if you don't end up using them, which you probably will and should. Someone's going to have to service it someday, and a cleaner threshold, a cleaner closer body is, in my opinion, would be preferred. Now, finishes. Thresholds are either made of aluminum or bronze. Architectural bronze or brass, some people will say. When considering thresholds, remember that they are being walked on, rolled over, rained on. This means that the finish you decide to use can be drastically affected by those conditions. The most forgiving base metal is aluminum. Mill aluminum doesn't tarnish or darken in time. Mill bronze or bronze base will darken after a while, and the end result is a dark oxidized appearance. So what they're saying is this: if you order aluminum, it'll pretty much look like that. You know, the color, short of it being damaged or scratched or whatever, it's going to stay that way. Brass is more of a base material, or bronze is more of a base material that is very susceptible to the elements. It will oxidize. An installation of that sort will definitely be one where you need to accept the fact that because a threshold, like a doorknob, is in constant contact with something, or like a kick plate, think of the arm of the floor closer. No one ever touches that. There's a decorative cap on there if it's an offset, or the top pivot, or the intermediate pivots. No one ever touches that. So that finish, with the exception of exposure to the elements, will not degrade prematurely. Kick plates, thresholds, doorknobs, bolts, all of that stuff comes in contact with people with oil, natural oil in their hands, rings on their fingers, keys in their hands, stones stuck in the bottom of their shoe, things of that nature. So bronze is one that you'll have to accept the fact that it will change in appearance over time, regardless of if you order it oil rubbed, polished brass, satin brass, or if you order it mill, or if you order it satin chrome or polished chrome. It's going to happen that it will change over time, and given enough installation, it's going to end up oxidized. So keep that in mind. Just word to the wise. Plated finishes on thresholds, Rixson says straight out, are not a good idea, period. To do a plated finish of bronze base materials, plated then lacquered. The first time someone with a pebble in the sole of their shoe, and I'm reading from the Rixson book now, walks across the threshold, it's going to scratch the lacquer off. Then the plating will wear. This leaves the bronze base material coming through. The wear patterns will become very noticeable. Plated thresholds are not warranted for finish. They will look super nice within the first 24 hours of having installed them. As you review the link to the product brochure below this video, you're going to see at the very end how to order. And Rixson has always done an exceptional job at summarizing what is technical material. The Rixson product line is not the easiest to digest off the top or right from the beginning. but they've always done, in my years of looking at their price books and their catalogs, an excellent job at summarizing all of that. You've got the columns there, and and I would ask that you get to how to order now. You can see that you've got your first option. You either go blank or PH. If it's a PH, meaning physically handicapped, you're at a 1/4 inch rise on your threshold, such that you are in compliance with handicap requirements, 1/4 inch, or standard 1/2 inch. You've got your type, your 1, 3, 4, and 5. We discussed those in a summary position before. Then you've got your series, and it's pretty straightforward how they do that. 400, 500, 600, 700, and 800, and that introduces the 6-inch size that was not previously mentioned. That's pretty straightforward. Then you've got your options in terms of stops, step downs, bevels, things of that nature. Need to know the length of the threshold or the width of the opening. Need to know how thick the door is. Need to know the hand, if it's not a pair. Need to know the closer that it's being used with, the full closer part number, and then need to know what the base material and then therefore the finish is. If you say aluminum, they know it's going to be mill finish. If you say bronze, they're going to assume mill bronze. Mill finished. Mill means what the extrusion looks like when it comes from the factory. Otherwise, you've got your plated finishes, 605, 612, 613, 625, 626. Those are listed there, and that inherently means it's a plating on the mill bronze surface. This pretty much concludes what I have to say regarding Rixson thresholds for their closers. In my opinion, while it is, to summarize, as I said at the beginning of this, thresholds are costly to buy them manufactured to fit the closer. Given the life expectancy of a floor closer installation from Rixson, it is very easy to amortize that cost over the life of the installation. In addition to that, you are guaranteed that fit and finish. In addition to that, you are guaranteed that your installer is not going to make an unintentional mistake. Let's face it, carpenters are carpenters. Engineers are engineers. Specification writers are specification writers. Customer service people are customer service people. The bottom line is this: to do the preparation to take a stocked threshold and make it work over floor closers requires sometimes, usually, a person who is all of those people at once. And that's just really never the case in my experience. And as a result, I say, don't be penny wise and pound foolish is the last thing I can say. Rixson Thresholds. If you have any questions on this or any other Rixson product, please feel free to reach out to us. While I'm not necessarily factory trained on Rixson Thresholds, enough experience allows me to try to help, and if I can't, there are most excellent people at Rixson who will be able to provide the answer. Again, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. Thank you.